Discover the 13 secrets that make ordinary people. 100 years old, proven by science. What if you could add 20 or 30 years to your life with simple changes? Have you ever imagined what it would be like to reach the age of 100 with health, lucidity, and independence? What would happen if you discovered that extraordinary longevity is not a matter of luck, but of daily choices? Today, I will reveal the 13 secrets that turn ordinary people into extraordinary centenarians. Science has finally decoded what makes certain people surpass a century of life with enviable vitality. This is not just generic advice, but specific strategies observed in the so-called blue zones, regions of the world where living beyond the age of 100 is surprisingly common. The most fascinating thing is that these habits can be implemented by anyone, regardless of their current age. You'll find out exactly what these people do differently and how you can get started today. Let's get started. 1. The Centenarians Food Code. You can copy today. The inhabitants of the blue zones share surprisingly similar dietary patterns, despite being on different continents. They consume mostly plant-based foods, with legumes, leafy greens, whole grains, and legumes forming the basis of their daily meals. Animal proteins appear in their diets as an occasional supplement, usually only a few times a week. A study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association followed more than 16,000 adults for 3 decades. The results were striking. Those who followed a Mediterranean-like eating pattern lived an average of 7 years longer. Centenarians rarely consume processed or industrialized foods, always preferring to prepare fresh meals. They naturally practice what nutritionists call hara hachibu, the habit of stopping eating when they are 80% satisfied. This practice prevents excessive calorie consumption without causing a feeling of deprivation or hunger. In addition, many centenarians consume generous amounts of fermented foods, such as yogurt, kefir, and fermented vegetables. These foods strengthen the gut microbiome, now recognized as critical to immune system health and longevity. The way they eat goes far beyond what they eat. It's a whole ritual of connection and gratitude. Have you ever thought that your next lunch could determine whether you will reach 90 or 110? 2. The magic movement. How 100-year-olds exercise. And it's not how you might think. Centenarians around the world rarely go to gyms or participate in marathons, but they naturally stay active every day. They incorporate constant movement into their daily routines, walking to shop, working in gardens or vegetable gardens, and performing household chores manually. A Harvard University study followed more than 6,000 seniors for 14 years, finding that those who walked just 30 minutes daily reduced their risk of premature death by 22%. The secret is not in the intensity, but in the consistency and natural integration of the movement in everyday life. Centenarians do not see physical activity as a separate obligation, but as an inseparable part of a life well lived. Many of them cultivate active hobbies such as gardening, dancing, or hiking for a social purpose, which stimulate both body and mind. The important thing to note is that they rarely engage in strenuous exercise that causes excessive oxidative stress in the body. Instead, they engage in what experts call natural movement. Activities that require moderate effort for prolonged periods. This approach is in stark contrast to the Western model of intense exercise, interspersed with long hours of sedentary lifestyle. Surprisingly, many centenarians never completely stop working, maintaining some level of productive activity even after the age of 90. This combination of purpose and movement appears to be particularly beneficial for exceptional longevity. Do you exercise to live longer? Or do you live in a way to exercise naturally? 3. The nightly ritual that adds decades to your life. The inhabitants of the blue zones share one surprising characteristic. They all deeply value quality sleep. They maintain regular bedtimes and wake-up times, usually synchronized with sunrise and sunset. Research from the University of Chicago has shown that sleeping less than 6 hours a night increases the risk of mortality by 50%. Centenarians typically sleep between 7 and 8 hours uninterrupted, allowing the body to complete all the necessary cycles of cellular restoration. During deep sleep, the brain activates its cleansing system, eliminating toxic proteins that build up during the day. This process, known as the glymphatic system, is key to preventing neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Many centenarians practice relaxation rituals before bed, such as warm baths, soothing teas, or quiet conversations with family members. They naturally avoid intense stimuli before bed, such as disturbing news or stressful discussions. Their rooms are generally cool, dark, and quiet, ideal conditions for restful and deep sleep. Notably, most centenarians rarely use sleep medications, relying instead on natural rhythms and consistent habits. This approach preserves the natural architecture of sleep, including the crucial phases of REM sleep and deep sleep. The sleep ritual may be more important to your longevity than any supplement or fad diet. What if the secret to living to 100 was literally in how you spend a third of your life? Sleeping. 4. The surprising social truth that prolongs life more than any medicine. In all long-lived communities around the world, strong social connections are as fundamental as healthy eating. Centenarians rarely live in isolation, remaining deeply integrated into family and community networks throughout their lives. A groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Epidemiology followed more than 7,000 people for 9 years. The conclusion was striking. People with strong social ties were 50% less likely to die during the study period. Social isolation represents a risk factor for premature mortality, equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Centenarians typically maintain daily contact with children, grandchildren, and close friends, creating a constant sense of belonging and purpose. Many long-lived communities prioritize regular social gatherings, such as shared meals, community celebrations, and religious rituals. These social interactions stimulate the production of beneficial hormones like oxytocin and reduce levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Notably, in the blue zones, seniors remain socially relevant, passing on knowledge and wisdom to younger generations. This role of wisdom keepers provides a deep sense of meaning that seems to promote physical and emotional resilience. Research shows that quality relationships have a more significant impact on longevity than genetics, diet, or exercise. In a digital age of superficial connections, perhaps the true elixir of youth is something surprisingly simple: deep and meaningful friendships. Are you building the kind of community that will help you make it to 100? 5. The invisible secret. Why having a why makes you live longer. Centenarians rarely retire completely in the Western sense of the term, maintaining a strong sense of purpose well into old age. Researchers at Rush University followed more than 1,000 seniors for 5 years, discovering something extraordinary. Those with a strong sense of purpose had a reduced mortality risk of 43%, regardless of age. This phenomenon goes beyond simple occupation. It is a deep sense that your existence has meaning and value. The Japanese call this ikigai, the intersection between what you love, what the world needs, what you do well, and what can be rewarded. Centenarians in Okinawa, Japan, can often clearly articulate their ikigai, even at the age of 90 or 100. For many, this purpose is connected to family, community, or meaningful personal projects that benefit others. Neurologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, documented how prisoners with a strong sense of purpose had a better chance of survival. This observation led to his famous conclusion: those who have a why to live can endure almost any how. Recent neuroimaging studies show that a strong sense of purpose is associated with lower systemic inflammation and better immune function. Centenarians rarely see themselves as old or retired, but as active and necessary participants in their families and communities. This positive self-image seems to create a virtuous cycle, where purpose leads to activity, which in turn reinforces health and purpose. What is your ikigai? The purpose that will make you want to wake up for the next 4 or 5 decades. 6. The rare mindset that turns problems into years of life. Centenarians around the world share a remarkable psychological trait: a fundamentally positive attitude toward life's challenges. Studies from Yale University revealed that people with positive perceptions about aging live, on average, 7.5 years longer. This effect was more significant than not smoking, maintaining a healthy weight, or engaging in regular exercise, factors traditionally associated with longevity. Centenarians rarely see themselves as victims of circumstance, demonstrating an extraordinary capacity for adaptation and resilience. They embrace the concept of adversity as opportunity, turning losses into lessons and challenges into catalysts for growth. A Harvard longitudinal study followed graduates for more than 8 decades, finding that attitude toward problems was a stronger predictor of longevity than wealth or professional success. The researchers identified a consistent pattern. Centenarians tend to practice what psychologists call positive cognitive reappraisal. This skill allows you to reinterpret stressful events in constructive ways, significantly reducing the physiological impact of stress. Blood tests of centenarians often show lower levels of inflammatory markers associated with chronic stress. This ability to manage negative emotions appears to protect against cardiovascular disease, dementia, and age-related immune decline. Interestingly, many centenarians report having faced significant adversity, wars, losses, deprivations, but have developed the ability not to get caught up in suffering. They naturally practice what Buddhists call non-attachment, recognizing the impermanence of all experiences, good or bad. Can you see today's problems as the builders of your century-old resilience of tomorrow? 7. The 5-minute technique that dissolves stress and adds years to your life. Centenarians in the blue zones incorporate daily relaxation and stress management practices into their routines, even without calling them by these names. Research from Harvard University has documented how these individuals regularly practice what scientists call the relaxation response. This physiological state reverses the harmful effects of chronic stress by reducing blood pressure, heart rate, and stress hormone levels. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology followed centenarians for 3 years, revealing a consistent pattern. Those who devoted time each day to contemplative practices such as prayer, meditation, or simply sitting quietly in nature had lower mortality rates. These practices appear to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the nervous system responsible for rest and digestion. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson has demonstrated that just 8 weeks of regular meditation can literally reshape brain regions associated with stress and anxiety. Analyses of telomeres, structures that protect DNA and shorten with aging, reveal that regular practitioners of relaxation techniques have significantly longer telomeres. In practical terms, this suggests slower cellular aging and a lower risk of age-related diseases. Centenarians often practice what we might call micro moments of relaxation throughout the day, rather than extended formal sessions. These brief breaks, such as breathing deeply while waiting for the water to boil or contemplating the sunset for a few minutes, cumulatively reduce the wear and tear caused by chronic stress. Surprisingly, many centenarians have never heard of stress reduction techniques, but have intuitively developed habits that fulfill this function. What if 5 minutes a day dedicated to mindful relaxation could add 5 years to your life? 8. The alcohol paradox, the exact dose that can make you live longer. A surprising pattern emerges when studying the habits of centenarians. Many of them consume alcohol moderately and regularly, especially red wine. Researchers at the University of California followed more than 8,000 adults for 20 years, documenting an intriguing phenomenon. Moderate drinkers, 1 or 2 drinks a day, had an 18% lower risk of mortality compared to abstainers. This phenomenon, known as the French paradox, has been particularly associated with regular and moderate consumption of red wine. The secret seems to lie in the resveratrol and other polyphenols present in wine, which activate genes associated with longevity and cardiovascular protection. Centenarians in the Mediterranean regions and blue zones typically consume small amounts of red wine during shared meals. This pattern of consumption, regular, moderate, and social, contrasts sharply with the model of binge drinking or occasional excessive consumption. Studies show that the positive social context of consumption can be as important as the drink itself. The timing of consumption also seems relevant. Most centenarians drink during meals, which slows down the absorption of alcohol. It is important to note that this benefit disappears completely when consumption exceeds 2 daily doses for men or 1 for women. In fact, excessive alcohol consumption is associated with a higher risk of cancer, liver disease, and accelerated brain degeneration. For those who prefer not to consume alcohol, purple grape juice also contains many of the same beneficial compounds, albeit in smaller concentrations. Is this one of the few vices that, in the right measure, can prolong your life instead of shortening it? 9. The daily brain. Exercise that protects against mental decline. Centenarians in the blue zones maintain extraordinarily sharp minds well into old age, challenging the notion that cognitive decline is inevitable. A study from Northwestern University followed super seniors, people over 80 years old with memory comparable to individuals decades younger. Neuroimaging revealed that their brains had significantly less atrophy and accumulation of toxic proteins related to dementia. The behavioral pattern of these individuals showed a common element: continuous mental engagement and regular resolution of complex problems. The human brain operates on the use it or lose it principle, maintaining and strengthening neural connections that are regularly stimulated. Cognitively healthy centenarians rarely retire completely from intellectually stimulating activities. They continue to learn new skills, engage in complex discussions, and seek new knowledge until very old ages. Longitudinal studies show that learning a new language or musical instrument after age 70 can reduce the risk of dementia by up to 40%. Post-mortem analyses of centenarian brains often reveal surprisingly high synaptic density, despite advanced age. This phenomenon, known as cognitive reserve, explains why some people maintain exceptional mental function even when they have significant brain pathologies. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, remains active until the end of life, allowing continuous learning at any age. Unlike previous generations, today's centenarians often engage with technology, social media, and formal education, keeping their brains actively engaged. Are you challenging your brain today to ensure that it will still work well 50 years from now? December, the astonishing spiritual connection that science has finally recognized. A consistent pattern emerges when studying centenarians globally. The vast majority maintain some form of lifelong spiritual or religious practice. Researchers at Duke University followed more than 4,000 adults for 7 years, documenting a statistically significant correlation. People who regularly participated in religious or spiritual activities had a 28% lower risk of mortality. This effect remained significant even after adjusting for other factors such as healthy behaviors, social support, and socioeconomic status. Modern science has finally begun to understand how spirituality can positively influence biological pathways associated with longevity. Neuroimaging studies reveal that contemplative practices such as prayer and meditation activate the prefrontal cortex and reduce activity in the amygdala, a brain region associated with fear and anxiety. This neurological modulation results in reduced levels of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which are known to accelerate cellular aging. Blood tests of regular spiritual practitioners show reduced inflammatory markers and better immune function compared to control groups. In addition to the direct physiological benefits, spiritual practices offer structure, meaning, and a sense of belonging, psychosocial factors associated with resilience. Most centenarians report that their faith or spiritual practice provides comfort and perspective in the face of loss, illness, and other inevitable challenges of aging. Longitudinal studies suggest that the benefit of spirituality for longevity does not depend on specific denomination, but on the consistency and depth of practice. For those who don't identify with traditional religions, secular contemplative practices like mindfulness meditation offer many of the same neurological and psychological benefits. Could your connection to something greater than yourself be the most powerful factor in determining how long you live? 11. Were you born without the longevity genes? The strategy that deceives your DNA. For decades, scientists believed that genetics determined 70% of our longevity, leaving only 30% under our control. Recent research from Stanford University has revolutionized this understanding, revealing that lifestyle can influence up to 80% of longevity-related gene expression. A groundbreaking study of identical twins showed that despite sharing 100% DNA, their life expectancies differed by up to 27 years, depending on their habits. This emerging field, known as epigenetics, reveals how our daily choices literally turn on or turn off genes associated with aging and disease. Your lifestyle acts as a remote control for your genes, allowing you to influence which genetic instructions your cells will follow. Centenarians often come from families where longevity was not common, but they adopted habits that reprogrammed their gene expression. A groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Gerontology found that just 6 months of positive lifestyle changes altered the expression of more than 500 age-related genes. Analyses of telomeres, structures that protect our DNA and shorten with age, show that healthy habits can literally slow down the biological clock. These findings fundamentally challenge genetic determinism, suggesting that even people with a genetic predisposition to disease can significantly modify their destiny. Centenarians often have genetic variants associated with longevity, but research shows that these same biological pathways can be influenced by lifestyle interventions. Particularly promising is the finding that intermittent fasting and moderate calorie restriction activate longevity genes, even in people who don't have them naturally. This new understanding represents an empowering paradigm. Your genetics may carry the gun, but your lifestyle decides whether the trigger will be pulled. What if you could rewrite your genetic destiny with the choices you make today? 12. The secret environment of centenarians that few know. An intriguing geographic pattern emerges when mapping the blue zones, regions with extraordinary concentrations of healthy centenarians. Researchers at the University of Minnesota have documented how these areas share specific environmental characteristics, regardless of continent or culture. Most of these regions are located at moderately high altitudes, between 400 and 2,000 meters above sea level. This moderate elevation creates mild hypoxic stress, a slight reduction in available oxygen that activates cellular mechanisms of endurance and longevity. Centenarians typically live in environments with minimal levels of air and chemical pollution, moderate sun exposure, and abundant access to nature. Epidemiological studies reveal that residing at least 500 meters from green areas reduces the risk of all-cause mortality by up to 12%. Air quality analyses in blue zones show significantly lower concentrations of fine particulate matter and industrial pollutants compared to urban centers. A Japanese study on Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, demonstrated that just 2 hours a week in natural environments reduces cortisol levels and increases natural killer cells, crucial components of the immune system. Dwellings in these regions tend to be naturally ventilated, with minimal exposure to volatile organic compounds found in modern building materials. The water in these areas often contains beneficial minerals such as magnesium, potassium, and bicarbonate, often coming from uncontaminated natural sources. The climate in these regions tends to be temperate, with moderate seasonal variations that stimulate physiological adaptation without extreme stress. Surprisingly, many blue zones are located on peninsulas or islands, suggesting that a degree of geographic isolation can preserve both favorable genes and beneficial cultural practices. While we may not all move to a blue zone, we can implement strategies to create healthier microenvironments in our own homes and communities. What would happen if you transformed your immediate environment to mimic the conditions found in the homes of the healthiest centenarians? 13. The learning habit that rejuvenates your brain at any age. Exceptionally healthy centenarians share a remarkable mental trait. They never stop learning. Researchers at Harvard University followed more than 2,000 people over the age of 70 for a decade making a startling discovery. Those who continually acquired new skills and knowledge had a 63% lower risk of developing dementia. This phenomenon goes beyond simple mental activity. It involves the challenge of learning something genuinely new and challenging at any age. The healthy centenarian brain is characterized by an insatiable curiosity and willingness to constantly step out of the intellectual comfort zone. Neuroimaging of cognitively active centenarians reveals patterns of neural connectivity similar to those seen in adults decades younger. Neuroscientist Michael Merzenich has shown that learning complex new skills in old age can reverse up to 20 years of apparent cognitive decline. This phenomenon, known as learning-induced neuroplasticity, occurs when new synaptic connections are formed in response to new and challenging stimuli. Centenarians often master new technologies, languages, or hobbies at an advanced age, bucking the stereotype of mental rigidity associated with aging. Longitudinal studies suggest that this mental adaptability is closely linked to physical adaptability and resistance to age-related diseases. The ability to evolve continuously, both mentally and behaviorally, seems to be a defining characteristic of individuals who achieve exceptional longevity. This continuous growth mindset creates a virtuous cycle where new experiences lead to new neural connections, which in turn facilitate greater adaptability. What completely new skill could you start learning today, knowing that this challenge can literally rebuild your brain? The 13-step method to redesign your destiny. We have reached the end of this journey through the secrets of centenarians, but for you, this may be just the beginning of an extraordinary transformation. Imagine yourself 3 or 4 decades from now, celebrating your 100th birthday surrounded by loved ones, lucid, independent, and full of vitality. This is not an unattainable fantasy, but a potential future based on choices that you can start making today. The 13 secrets I shared are not complex medical interventions or expensive experimental treatments, but observable and replicable patterns of life. Science has finally confirmed what the centenarians of the blue zones have always instinctively known. Extraordinary longevity is more a matter of lifestyle than luck or privilege. Every little daily choice, what you eat, how you move, how much you sleep, who you connect with, deposits a coin in the bank of your longevity. These coins accrue compound interest over the decades, eventually yielding the priceless treasure of additional years of healthy and meaningful life. The real miracle is not only in living longer, but in living better all the way, maintaining physical and mental capacities that many consider impossible after a certain age. Remember, centenarians are not superhuman or genetically predestined for longevity. They simply consistently honor the natural rhythms of the human body and mind. The human body is designed to function for a century or more when treated with the appropriate respect and care. The question is not whether you can live to be 100, but what kind of centenarian you will choose to be through the decisions you make today. Start by implementing just one of these secrets this week, then add another next week, and another the next. In a few months, you'll have completely redirected your life trajectory. The 1,000-mile journey to becoming a healthy centenarian starts with a single step. What will yours be?